All right, Michael, the other big story involves former NBA player DeSean Jackson, who has doubled down in his defense of Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver DeSean Jackson, even after DeSean was publicly reprimanded by the Eagles for using his social media account to post anti-Semitic messages that DeSean attributed to Hitler. Now, DeSean has apologized twice, while DeSean Jackson said DeSean was, quote, speaking the truth. Today, DeSean went on Instagram Live and continued his hateful rhetoric toward Jews, which included him saying, quote, I haven't said one thing that's not untrue yet. All right, Michael, there's a lot to unpack here. What are your thoughts of this latest development?
Well, my thoughts are pretty simple about this, Frank. This is not tolerable. And you know, I'm never, if ever, in favor of when somebody's on an active roster of suspension or fine or firing. No. Ridicule, public ridicule. It undermines everything DeSean Jackson said so eloquently on behalf of Black Lives Matter. He has no credibility now. He's undermined his own previous good work with this garbage, and it's garbage. And so I know DeSean Jackson. I like him. And if I was sitting with him now, I've worked with him, I would say, DeSean, stop. You're wrong. You're not speaking any truth. You're going to have to become more familiar with the truth via history. And so let's read read it together. This is insane. You are ruining, you're just ruining weeks of actually trying to appeal to people on one level and then bringing your own bigotry and prejudice in at a time where no one can afford to see that. No one can afford to have it, to entertain it. Stop it. And I don't know if he has people around him who will do that or not, Frank.
No, I think you're right. You know, it speaks to ignorance and it's hateful. And I think a guy like DeSean Jackson, because he's playing in the NFL and the Eagles clearly spoke to him. And like I mentioned, he has apologized twice. The problem is no one is getting to DeSean Jackson. And you mentioned what he did the last month. George Floyd was a guy that he knew, and DeSean has been out in front, and he's done a lot of interviews. You wonder if after a while, just because you're doing that, it doesn't mean you're a scholar in race relations, in religion, and in history. And before you're going to say something, vet it out. Do some research. Don't just throw and spew all this nonsense out there, because it's terrible for him, and it's terrible for everything that he's accomplished over the past month.
It is. And DeSean Jackson, I'll say this. I hated what I heard him say when he said it or tweeted or however he communicated it. But then more importantly than the apology to me is sort of reaching out to get people, making contact in the community that you're in with people from the community you just disparaged. And so that effort has been made, whether it was influenced or done instinctively, I don't much care. That effort has to start. But this DeSean Jackson doubling down, this can't be tolerated. And someone needs to get to DeSean Jackson and just say, and also people talk about educating themselves. Frank, part of educating yourself is just shutting up and listening. For everybody, for anybody who wants to educate him or herself. And at some point, he's got to do that as a place to start. And there's clearly a lot more work to be done.
And I think, Michael, too, a guy like DeSean Jackson, he has a very popular podcast. It's on Showtime. And I think after a while, you kind of get caught up in it that people want me to say controversial and outrageous things. And sometimes you can say whatever you want, but there are going to be consequences.
Yeah. And the greatest consequence, right now, you look at the consequence for some. Ridicule. It starts there. And so I don't know what DeSean Jackson's thinking. I don't know who his influencers are. One can only hope